HMS Belfast is a World War II light cruiser moored up in the heart of London. In this guide I'm going to tell you a little of its history and why it's so famous, and also show you around. HMS Belfast is a town-class light cruiser. She was built for the Royal Navy and was launched in 1938, before becoming an active warship in August 1939, just weeks before the outbreak of World War II. She played a very active role in this conflict, but in the opening phase of the conflict managed to hit a mine which did enough damage to put her out of action until 1942. HMS Belfast then played an important role in protecting the vital Arctic convoys, and most famously took part in the Battle of the North Cape, where she played a key role in the sinking of the powerful German battleship Scharnhorst, shown here. A mighty beast indeed. Later in the war, she was one of the first ships to fire on the German defences during the Normandy D-Day landings, and then spent 5 weeks bombarding German coastal defences as part of Operation Neptune, which was the naval part of D-Day. After World War II, she continued to serve and took part in operations in the Korean War between 1950 and 1952, before eventually retiring in 1963. Since 1971, she has been a museum ship and is now cared for by the Imperial War Museum, and is now a must-visit attraction moored right in the heart of central London. HMS Belfast is moored about halfway between London Bridge and the historic Tower Bridge. The closest tube station is London Bridge, which is less than 5 minutes walk away. It's recommended to book tickets in advance, which you can do from the website of the Imperial War Museum. The ticket price is quite expensive, being £25.45 when I last looked. However, I really think it's worth it. You're in the centre of one of the world's great cities and you get a chance to fully explore a famous ship, and it's also for a good cause to support the Imperial War Museum, which is a charity. We're going to start off by looking around the quarterdeck, which is at the back of the ship, also known as the stern if you're a sailor type. This is where you enter the ship from. At the very back is a great spot for taking shots of the famous Tower Bridge. The next stop is the interior of the rear gun turret. These triple 6-inch guns fired in support of the D-Day landings, and inside the rather cramped interior you can hear an immersive sound experience to give you an insight into what it must have been like. The turret interior, like all such spaces in the ship, is small and full of pipes, levers and all sorts of machinery, so it's a good spot to learn to mind your head and pay attention to where you're going, because there are many trip hazards. From the quarterdeck you can then enter the main interiors of the ship. Some of these are surprisingly broad and spacious, and also give access to most of the other areas on the ship. But before exploring the mid-decks, you should climb down into the bows of the ship to visit the engine rooms. This involves climbing down very tight ladders, which will be difficult if you have backpacks or loose clothes, so I recommend being very careful. Once down, you will find yourself in a truly extraordinary space, which is crammed full of machines, pipes, levers, gauges and all sorts of other things I can't even think what they're called. These are connected by walkways and ladders, allowing access to the very bottom of the ship. It must have been extremely noisy and hazardous down here when the ship was operational, with so much machinery everywhere. The main feature here are the huge oil-fired boilers and steam turbines that drove the 4 propeller shafts, making the ship capable of 32.5 knots, which is about 60 kilometers an hour, which is mind-boggling to imagine something this big moving through the ocean at such a speed. Also in the lower decks are the shell rooms, where you can see replica shells ready to be hoisted up onto the guns above. Just try and imagine the activity in here as sailors had to keep the guns above supplied with ammo during D-Day. Somewhere down here is also where the ship was steered from. For some reason I neglected to record it, so apologies for that, but it was interesting to learn that the steering took place from a location buried deep inside the ship, where it was impossible to see outside and directions had to be relayed from the bridge. Heading back up to the main deck, you can discover a variety of interesting spaces on the inside of the ship. There are plenty of toilets and washrooms, which I'm sure came in very useful, and I even read somewhere that some of the toilets shattered during the D-Day bombardments due to the power of the guns going off. There is also a giant galley where food would have been produced in mass quantities for the nearly 1,000 men who would have served on the ship in wartime. Further into the ship there is also medical facilities, complete with operating tables and hospital beds for the wounded. All of this is brought to life with compelling audio and notes from the ship's history. There are also machine rooms here because on active service, They had to be able to repair themselves and remain fully self-sufficient. Heading up and out, we come to the bow or front of the ship. From here you get amazing views over London, as well as impressive views looking up at the bridge and its 6-inch guns. If you go right up to the pointy bit at the end, you can see the huge anchor and mighty chains. The super-firing 6-inch gun turret up here is also open and can be explored. Finally, it's time to head up to the bridge. It's a lot of tight steps, but if you got through the engine rooms it won't be a problem, but it's still a tight squeeze. The highlight is the bridge with its commanding views over the guns and London. You can even sit in the authentic chairs of the navigator and captain, which is also a fun opportunity, and you can imagine steering and commanding the ship. The other rooms up here contain lots of equipment and small rooms for officers, and is interesting to look around. A lot of the stuff from here is Cold War era, from the time when the ship had been modernised after World War II. You can also get up onto the roof of the bridge, known as the flag deck, for more epic views over the ship and over London. That was just a short highlight of the mighty HMS Belfast, and there's a lot more to see and learn here, so make sure you visit the next time you're in London. It's really worth it. Thank you for watching, and cheerio!